All right, I'm back now. So I like to say shalom. I had to delete my last video, so now I'm back with this video to actually have everything more in perspective. Because that last video, I was waiting and looking too long for things, and I didn't want it to drag out. So now I'm back, and now hopefully I can get everything in perspective. So we're going to start off with actually the tribulation is, according to history as well as the Bible. And we're not going to find year 2019 or the 21st century out of it. So now, Matthew 24 and 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. So now, we're going to look at what the tribulation actually was according to the Bible as well as history. So we know that Christ made this tribulation prophecy dealing with the destruction of the temple. No matter how many people want to half it up or switch it up or cut the Matthew 24 up into different segments, it's all one flow, it's one idea, it's one thought. And it was about the destruction of the temple. So now, let's hit what the tribulation period was dealing with the destruction of the temple. So where will I go? I will go to someone who lived during the tribulation period. Shalom, Mr. Martin. I'm just breaking down some of the tribulation period. I'm going to go to Josephus, the complete work of Flavius Josephus, dealing with what he did. Well, I'm gonna go through that Christ return later. That's not what I'm on right now. I'm going through the tribulation period. So let's go through the biblical tribulation period and see what was going on. So the War of the Jews, Book 6, Chapter 3, Section 4. So I'm just gonna read some of the things that they were going through in the tribulation period. Because once again, remember, the tribulation period, according to the Bible, happened around the destruction of the temple. So let's see some of the things that was happening during the destruction of the temple. There was a certain woman that dwelt beyond Jordan. Her name was Mary. Her father was Eleazar of the village Bethzabub, which signifies the house of hyssop. So now, I'm going to skip around so we can get to the point. Remember, one of the prophecies that Christ gave was pestilences. As well, in Revelation, we see that one of the seals, I think it was the fourth or fifth seal, was the horseman of pestilence. But we're going to see it played out right here. The famine and the pestilences. So now, let's see. Famine pierced through her bowels and marrow, when also her passion was fired to a degree beyond the famine itself. Nor did she consult with anything but with her passion and the necessity she was in. She then attempted the most unnatural thing, and snatching up her son, who was sucking at her breast, she said, O thou miserable infant, for whom shall I preserve thee in this war, this famine, and this sedition? So remember, Matthew 24, they asked him the signs. They said, what are the signs of your coming and of the end of the world and the destruction of the temple? So this is pretty much lining up to what Matthew 24 is talking about. Shalom, warrior, shalom. So now, we see one of the signs were Matthew 24 and 7. For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. That was one of the signs. They are in the land of Judah, so Josephus is saying what actually occurred during while he was in the land of Judah in the first century. He can't tell you what happened around the rest of the surrounding areas because he was not there. He can only tell you what he saw. So we're going through the things that he saw. So now, So this is the famine that Christ was telling them about. Beyond the famine itself, nor did she consort with anything but with her passion and the necessity she was in. She then attempted a most unnatural thing, and snatching up her son, who was a child sucking at her breast, she said, O thou miserable infant, for whom shall I preserve thee in this war? Remember, we got wars, rumors of wars, we got the famine. All of these things are what Christ warned them to look for during the destruction of the temple, his second coming, and the end of the age. So if somebody try to tell you what's about today's time, 2019, they have not went through the scriptures, they have not read. Those signs been going. No, my brother. These are specific signs that Christ gave. He didn't. They didn't ask him what's the sign that happens throughout the whole world. They asked him what are the signs of your coming, the destruction of the temple, and all that stuff. So this is what he was answering. So these are specific signs that he was answering to questions. We can't just make the Bible say what we want it to say. We got to keep it where it's at. So now, this is what's going on. I preserve thee in this war, this famine, and this sedition. As to the war with the Romans, if they preserve, remember, Romans is the fourth beast. Was in rulership when Christ was on the earth, giving that prophecy. So this is the fourth beast. War with the Romans. If they preserve our lives, we must be slaves. This famine also will destroy us, even before the slavery comes upon us. Yet are these seditious rogues more terrible than both the other. Come on, be thou my food, and be thou a fury to these seditious varlets, and a byword to the world. You remember the curses? You're going to be a byword. Let me show you another curse, which is all that is now wanting to complete the calamities of us Jews. As soon as she had said this, she slew her son, and then roasted him, and ate the one half of him, and kept the other half by her concealed. So what did she just do? Her son was sucking on her breast, so he was an infant. She killed the infant, then she roasted him and ate him because she was so hungry. Now, where do we find that at? Where do we find that at? We go into Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28. And Deuteronomy 28 and let me find it real fast. I had it the other day. I should have marked it then. Deuteronomy 28 and what it said, you should eat the fruit of your body. Curses the fruit of your body. Well, this is one of them right here at the 37. And that should become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord should lead thee. We already see her say that. So that's one thing that was going to occur. But though that's not what I was looking for. But that's one thing about the byword. But hold on. We add inflammation, smitten in 7 ways. The Lord about to stand, healing great fruit. I'm finna find it. Give me 1 second. The Lord should bring it in. And if y'all know where it's at, y'all just can tell me where it's at. Joshua said the nakedness, hunger, fear, Here we go right here. Verse 53. Deuteronomy 28:53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord thy God has given thee in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. And I think it's still recording. I'm not sure. Last time it did this, so I'm not sure if it's still recording. So I'm just going to keep talking. So once again, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which is the Lord thy God has given thee in the siege and in straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. So we literally have that curse being demonstrated in Josephus's time, which is the 1st century. All right, what else can we have? Upon this seditious came in presently, and smelling the horrid scent of this food, they threatened her that they would cut her throat immediately if she did not show them what food she had gotten. If she had not, sorry y'all, my phone, I'm about out of data, so it's going to be cutting off. So hopefully y'all saw the Deuteronomy 28 passage that showed that it was a curse that they was going to eat the fruit of their own bodies. So she was eating the fruit of her own bodies. So this is what was going on during the famine. Then you got the robbers coming to her house. They smelled the food, so they threatened to kill her if she did not give them some food. So this is what she did. She replied that she had saved a very fine portion of it for them, and withal uncovered what was left of her son. Hereupon they were seized with a horror and amazement of mind, and stood astonished at the sight, when she said to them, This is my own son. What hath been done was mine own doing. Come, eat of this food, for I have eaten of it myself. Do not you pretend to be either more tender than a woman, or more compassionate than a mother. But if you be so scrupulous, and do abominate this my sacrifice, as I have eaten the one half, let the rest be preserved or reserved for me also. So she's saying, if y'all are not going to like the food, let me eat it. This is her son, y'all. But let's keep reading. Let's see what else happens during the tribulation period in the 1st century, which is really the tribulation period that the Bible is talking about. It's not talking about people being shot in the streets today. It wasn't talking about slavery. This is, into the Most High's eyes, this was way more of an abomination and a tribulation than anything ever recorded in history. But look at this. 2:12, after which those men went out trembling, being never so much affrighted at anything as they were at this. And with some difficulty they left the rest of the meat to the mother. Look what it says. Upon which the whole city was full of this horrid action immediately. And while everybody laid this miserable case before their own eyes, they trembled, as if this unheard of action had been by themselves. Did y'all not just read what happened? First, the mother killed her son and ate him. And then the rest of the city that was in this famine, they did the same exact thing. Israel became cannibals. They were eating dead people. The nation of Israel, God's chosen people, was in so much of a famine that they had to resort to eating. We can keep going on. War of the Jews, book 6, section 4, under 5, right here. Let's see what else it says. This is what they knew. So Titus retired into the tower of Antonia and resolved to storm the temple the next day, early in the morning, with his whole army, and to encamp round about the holy house. But as for that house, God had for certain long ago doomed it to the fire. And now that fatal day was come, according to the revolution of ages, it was the 10th day of the month, upon which it was formerly burnt by the king of Babylon. In other words, the Most High allowed the temple to be destroyed on the same exact day that Nebuchadnezzar sacked the temple over 600 years before this date. This is how the Most High works. He works in cycles. So I want you to notice that everything is said about fire. He doomed it with fire right here. A certain divine fury snatched somewhat of the materials that were on fire. Through all this, look, fire. fire. No matter where you go in Josephus, when you see about the temple being destroyed and Jerusalem being destroyed, look, the whole city being on fire. You got fire. Look, but as the flame, fire, fire. We can keep going on. It's all fire, fire, fire. What is so important about that? Because once you go into the Bible, we can go into what Malachi. See, now we're going to show you what some of these prophecies actually meant. Because people want to say that these prophecies are for our future. But no, these prophecies are not for our future. These prophecies were for the past. All of these things happened about 2,000 years ago. The Bible is a history book. The Bible is complete. It's finished. We're supposed to learn from it and enjoy the new covenant and realize that we're in the kingdom of heaven. The Most High is tabernacling with mankind. So, it's still evil on earth, yes, but Revelation actually explains why that occurs. But right now, let's just go through some of the prophecy. Zechariah 12 and 14. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of people shall not be cut off from the city. Where are we seeing this at? The destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD. Where else do people like to go? Where is this? Where is the 2/3 and 1/3? That's in Zechariah, I believe. What is it? 10. The Lord should make it rain. The fine. No, but you see it right there in 11. Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. But I'm looking for the 1/3 and the 2/3 that everybody like going to, so we can actually get better understanding of what that's about. Where is it at? Thought it was in 10, 11, 12. Well, if I can't find it right now, I can still go through Zechariah though. Zechariah 6. In that day I will make Zechariah 12 and 6. In that day I will make the governors of Judah like an heart of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in the sheath. We got fire again coming to destroy everything. And where else can we go? Verse Zechariah 14 and 5, but this is actually easy right here. And you shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach into Azel. Yea, you shall flee like you fled before the earthquakes in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Well, this is what Christ told them. Once you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, fleeing to the mountains. So you see him telling them to flee into the valley of the mountains right there. So Christ was just actually restating what was told in Zechariah. But it's gonna mess with me if I can't find it 2/3, 1/3. It's just gonna have to mess with me right now because I gotta keep going. So Malachi, let's see what Malachi say. Malachi 4 and 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day cometh, and that day that cometh shall burn them up, said the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So once again, we're seeing more things dealing with fire. In Matthew 3, we have verse 10. And now is the axe laid into the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. We got Matthew 3. No, was it Let me look real fast. I don't want to stay on one thing too long because I got too much stuff to cover. So I'm just gonna jump right now. When he said the one he's gonna baptize, I baptize you indeed with water, but the one whose shoes I'm not fit to lace or something, he should baptize you with fire. So we see more dealing with the fire. But I wanna keep going and show more and more about the fire. Revelation 9, Revelation 18 and 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and live deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. So we got fire, fire, fire. It's all about fire and the destruction of the world coming with fire. And that's all we see. Fire, 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 and the destruction coming with fire. I could build this a whole lot more. See, look, they burnt the treasury up. The cloisters of fire. But it's so much other stuff that we can hit on. Let's see. Look, chapter 6. And now the Romans, upon the flight of the seditious into the city, and upon the burning of the holy house itself, and all the buildings round about it, brought in their ensigns. So now, we want to talk about the abomination of desolation, right? Because it happened several times. The people who defiled the priesthood, they was the abomination of desolation. So now we also have here, War of Jews, book 6, chapter 6, section 1. And now the Romans, upon the flight of the seditious into the city, and upon the burning of the holy house itself, and upon the buildings round about it, brought their ensigns to the temple, and set them over against its eastern gate. And there did they offer sacrifices to them, and there did they make Titus imperator, which the greatest acclamation of joy. So, you have it right there. You have the abomination of desolation right there. You got him who's sitting in the temple to say, I am God, declaring that he is God, and doing the things of God. You have it all right here in the first century. I mean, let's keep going. Let's keep all going and showing everything that the Bible said was going to occur dealing with Christ's second coming. It actually happened in the first century. Everything, history pretty much shows you that the Bible ended in the first century under the Roman Empire. So now, let's see if I can find something else real fast. Because I'm in book 6 now. Let's go to War of the Jews, book 6, chapter 2, section 1. And now Titus gave orders to his soldiers that were with him to dig up the foundations of the tower of Antonia, and to make him a ready passage for his army to come up, while he himself had Josephus brought to him. For he had been informed that on that very day, which was the 17th day of Penelmas or Tammuz, the sacrifice called the daily sacrifice had failed, and had not been offered to God for want of men to offer it, and that the people were grievously troubled at it. And let's see what he did. Upon Josephus stood in such a place where he might be heard, not by John only, but by many more that declared to them what Caesar had given him in charge, and in his Hebrew language. So he earnestly prayed to them to spare their own city and to prevent that fire. So we got more fire that was just ready to seize upon the temple, and to offer their usual sacrifices to God. At these words of such a great sadness, and silence was observed among the people. Look, and answer what Josephus said thus with a loud voice. Hold on now, we can go right here. But the tyrant himself cast many reproaches upon Josephus, and with imprecations beside, and at last added this withal, that he did never fear the taking of the city, because it was God's own city. And look, let's keep going. To be sure that he has kept this city wonderfully pure for God's sake, the temple also continues entirely unpolluted, nor has there been guilty of any impiety against him, for whose assistance thou hopest. He still received his accustomed sacrifices. Vile wretch thou art. If anyone should deprive thee of thy daily food, thou wouldst esteem him to be an enemy to thee. But thou hopest to have that God for thy supporter in this war, whom hast thou deprived of his everlasting worship, and thou imputest those sins to the Romans, who is to this very time take care to have our laws observed, and almost compel these sacrifices to be still offered to God, which have by thy means been intermitted. So the Jews was the ones who stopped the daily sacrifice. Now, why am I reading this? Why am I reading that deals with the daily sacrifice and it stopped? Well, once you go to Daniel, you're not going to find no prophecy in the Bible that did not be fulfilled by first century. You're not going to find not one prophecy. So now let's go to Daniel. Is it 9? It's either 7 or 9. It's 9. Daniel 9 and 26 and 27. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. This happened in 70 AD, dealing with the destruction of the temple. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and until the end of the war, desolations are determined. So until the war end, it's going to be plenty of desolations inside Jerusalem. Look, one shall confirm the covenant with many, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. How long is it going to be desolate? Even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So now, we have Daniel being fulfilled. And that's the end right there. We all know Daniel is the time of the end, the 70 weeks. So we have Daniel being fulfilled right here. 70 AD during the War of the Jews. Let's see here. We got War of the Jews, Book 6, Chapter 2, Section 4. How have you not allowed to put into the pillars thereof belonging to due distance to it to engrave in Greek and in your own letters this prohibition, that no foreigner should be beyond the wall? Have not we given you leave to kill such as go beyond it, though we were a Roman? And what do you do now, you pernicious villains? Why do you trample upon dead bodies in this temple? And why do you pollute this holy house with the blood of both of foreigners and Jews themselves? I appeal to the gods of my own country and to every god that ever have any regard to this place, for I do not suppose it would be now regarded by any of them. I also appeal to my own army and to those Jews that are now with me, and even to yourselves, that I do not force you to defile your sanctuary. And if you will be cut, and if you will but change the place wherein you will fight, no Roman shall come near your sanctuary or offer any affront to it. Nay, I would endeavor to preserve you your holy house, whether you will or not. So now we have that even Titus was telling them that y'all are defiling your temple. Y'all have dead bodies in the temple. Y'all have all this blood in that holy place. How about we go outside somewhere and we can fight outside of that, so us Romans won't have to enter inside of your holy of holies. We don't want to enter inside of your holy of holies. See, what a lot of people don't understand is the Roman government as a whole was donating things to Jerusalem. See, a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of the Romans practiced the customs of the Mosaic law. A lot of people don't know that. So a lot of people want you to think that it was just an Israel thing. No, no, no. In fact, Josephus recorded, because Josephus was a priest out of the Pharisees, and he was a prophet, and he had signs, what a lot of people don't know. But I actually went through the whole 6 books of Josephus. I went through all 23 hours of audio listening to it, from one to the other. And I didn't open up another book until I was done with it, so I understood the whole point. So no. A lot of people don't understand what Josephus was about, but now all you got to do is do the work. Y'all see all this stuff? This is me going through it page by page. This is me going through it, underlining and stuff. So now, Josephus was recording all of the things that was going on, because first of all, he understood the prophecies of Daniel, and he was showing them that they was fulfilling all of the prophecies of Daniel. So it was the Jews who actually caused the abomination of desolation inside of the temple. And then later on, the Romans finished it, because it said it was going to be abominations with an S. So it was plenty of abominations before the temple itself was cut off completely. But the point is, you're not going to find not one prophecy that was not fulfilled by the 1st century. Every prophecy in the Bible has been fulfilled. So people that's trying to teach us that the Bible is about our times have not done the research to find out what the Bible is actually about. So now, let's keep going on. Let's go back into Matthew 24. Let's go back into Matthew 24. Look, now I'm just going to read the first 3 verses so we can get the whole setting. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temples. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. That's the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? When shall the destruction of the temple be? What shall be the sign of thy coming? They knew that the destruction of the temple dealt with Christ's second coming and the end of the world or age. They understood that the destruction of the temple was going to mean a lot of stuff was coming to an end. The end of the age, the end of the Mosaic age, the new covenant is here now. They knew that. When is this age of sacrifices and all of this stuff going to end so we can go into the new covenant? When is your second coming going to happen so you can bring your kingdom upon the earth? When is the destruction of the temple going to happen so we can worship the Father individually amongst ourselves instead of having to rely on the people, instead of having to come to these wretched people in Jerusalem? All of this stuff. This is what Matthew 24 is about. This is what it teaches. But look, this is what he said. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man should deceive you. He told them to make sure that no man should deceive them, right? And then later on, he told them, For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show signs, great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it was possible, they should deceive the very elect. Well, let's go into Josephus and see what happened. Josephus, book 6, chapter 5, section 2, around line 285. A false prophet was the occasion of these people's destruction. Who? A false prophet was the occasion. I mean, there was plenty of false prophets back then. Wow. Just like Christ said was going to happen. So, once again, hopefully we're understanding what Matthew 24 is actually about. This is what Revelation is actually about. It's not about America or China or Russia or nothing that anybody want to tell you. It's not about you doing the Mosaic law, you going around people's house and keeping the feast days and you wearing fringes. No, none of that. You are reading a history book. I'm sorry. This is the truth. So now, a false prophet was the occasion of these people's destruction, who had made a public proclamation in the city that very day that God commanded them to get up upon the temple, and that there they should receive miraculous signs of their deliverance. Now there was a great number of false prophets suborned by the tyrants to impose upon the people, who denounced this to them, that they should wait for deliverance from God. And this was in order to keep them from deserting, and that they might be bowled up above fear and care by such hopes. Look what it says. Now a man that is in adversity does easily comply with such promises. So let's bring that to our day and time, 2019. See, back then in the first century, they knew that a person that was going through adversity, all of the mistreatment of our people, all of the falsehood that we saw inside the Christian church, the raping, the killing of our people per se, and the police, what they're doing to us, all of this calamity, all of this adversity. It's easy to bewail those type of people with promises. So what do? They promise you that Christ is going to come back. He's going to return. He's going to make everything better. They promise you that you're going to get slaves. They promise you the reason why we're going through what we're going through right now is because it's a divine intervention. It's the curses of Moses. That's the reason why you're looked upon. That's the reason why you're frail. That's the reason why this happened. But okay, Christ is going to come and he's going to make everything straight. He's going to kill all the bad people off and everybody's going to live in harmony. You see how easy it is to give that promise out when people are going through adversity? That's the reason why false prophets was able to live back then. They was going through not what we're going through today. They was going through way worse, but they was going through adversity too. We go through adversity now. So you have been bewildered by these elders. You have been bewildered by yourself. You have been bewildered that the Bible is speaking of you in 2019 when it specifically says times, it specifically says countries, it specifically says people, and you're still trying to make it about yourself. Yes, it could be about your ancestors 100%, but them are your ancestors. It's not your time. If the Bible says Egypt, it means Egypt. If it says Asia, it means Asia. If it says Corinthians, it means Corinthians. If it said you in front of me, he means those in front of him. Quit reading yourself inside the Bible. And this shows you, they was going through the same thing back then. They was going through adversity, so they was able to be bewildered with any promise. I'm telling y'all gotta actually let the Bible stand for what it stands for so you can understand the new covenant and understand how you're supposed to dwell inside of the kingdom of heaven that's on earth. You don't understand it yet because you are looking at a get out of jail free card. You're looking for something that's not going to never occur. You're either looking for Christ to come out, which then his coming and happened 2,000 years ago. You're looking for King David to come out, which actually was Christ if you believe in the Messianic. So there's so much stuff that people are getting wrong. You believe that you're still under the Mosaic covenant because you're looking around and saying, man, I'm cursed. No, my brothers, no, my sisters, we got to get out of that. But let's keep going on. Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers. Just like today, miserable people are persuaded by deceivers today. And look what they call them, deceivers. People that deceives. People that say things and it's not really true are deceivers. People that say Christ is coming back and he's not coming back because he didn't already came back. They are deceivers. Elders, deceivers. Leaders, deceivers. Yourself, deceiver. If you're not believing the truth. And such as believed God himself, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident and so plainly foretell their future destructions. So they even had signs that they was going to be destroyed, but they denounced all of them signs and they started believing the false prophets. And I'm not going to go through that right now, all of the signs. If you want to look at it, it's in Josephus chapter 5. Sections 2, 3. I'm gonna do all this next week if you want to get ahead. But you can see all of the signs that show that the destruction was first century. Everything was supposed to happen in the first century. It's one that I do want to show you, though, for my people who don't believe Christ had already returned and all of that stuff. And people don't believe that the war of Armageddon has already happened and all that stuff. I do want to read this one sign for you. I'm going to start at line 296. So these publicly declared, and the signal foreshadowed the desolation that was coming up upon them. Beside these, a few days after the feast, on the 21st day of the month, Artemis, or Jar, a certain prodigious and incredible phenomenon appeared. I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable, where it not related by those that saw it. So a lot of people saw this. A lot of people saw it, and were not the events that followed it of so considerable a nature as to deserve such signals. For behold, for before sunsetting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding of cities. Moreover, at the feast which was called Pentecost. And I can keep reading, but you see, we have the armies right there that surrounded all of the cities before the destruction of the temple, a few months before the destruction of the temple. So you have it in Revelation. What are we looking at? I think Revelation. Where it says that Christ came down. Well, right here, Revelations 19 and 13. Well, 19 and 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he does judge and make war. This happened right before the destruction of the temple. Once again, his eyes were as flame as fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. So, I mean, my people, what more do we need to prove that all of this occurred in the first century under the Roman Empire? That's why I can keep going with this. For people, we are telling y'all the Bible is complete. The Bible is over with. Every prophecy has already occurred. So we are in the new covenant. So that's why in Daniel, let's go to Daniel real fast. That's why in Daniel 7 and 7, that's the fourth beast right there, right? Daniel 7 and 7 is the fourth beast. You go to Daniel 10, which is under the fourth beast. You have the judgment was set and the books were open. That's Judgment Day right there. You have Judgment Day, according to Daniel, occurring during the Roman Empire. So, in the War of the Jews, you have the armies of heaven being seen by everybody in the Roman Empire. You have Christ saying in Luke 21, you got Christ saying in Luke 21, 21 and 22, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. So Christ just said everything will be fulfilled during the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. So you're not going to be able to pick through any scriptures and say, What about this and what about that? When Christ tells you that this is when all of this is going to be fulfilled. Everything in the Tanakh. And then you have 24 right there. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Verse 27, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. That's Christ's second coming, correct? Look, verse 32, verily I say unto you, he's talking to the disciples, this generation, which is the first century, shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. So, what more does Christ have to say? I mean, what more do we want from him? And let's see now if we can find, let's see if we can find it real fast. Them actually going into slavery. Since we're there, let me find that slavery one. I think it's earlier. I think it might be book. Well, we got some right here. Look, book 6, chapter 8, 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Yeah, I think we're good right there. So now, and I actually went and showed y'all, was it 2 days ago, dealing with them actually going into Egypt. Well, they was actually putting them up and sending them over into Egypt, into the salt mines, which is the fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28:68. It has nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade. So, I'm sorry if this is going to expose a lot of false doctrines, but if we're going to follow the Bible, we need to follow it correctly. So now, I'm just showing the tribulation periods. And this crazy part of it is a lot of this stuff occurred during all feast days. A lot of this was happening during different type of feast days. But let's see. We got the Aldumians helping out. I'm trying to see where I didn't go through yesterday. We got the 4 commanders right there, which is actually the four demons or whatever that came out of the Euphrates River and Revelation. I got actually right there. Revelation 9:15. Revelation 9:15 says, no, this can't be right. Revelation. Sorry, I was in 11:15. Revelation 9:15 states, and the 4 angels was loose, which were prepared for 1 hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of man. We got the 4 generals coming down right there, and guess exactly what they did? Slayed most of Jerusalem. Just most of it. So now, I want to go through some more of the War of the Jews and actually see some more things. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to sift through it. Some of the stuff I haven't went through. Sorry, y'all. I'm going. I'm looking. We have well, we can keep going though. We have War of the Jews, book 4, chapter 7, section 3. And I just want to read just some of it. My brother Martin, Sister Nancy, brother Martin, thank you, thank you. I went through the whole thing, so I want to bring some of it out, and I'm gonna finish it up next week. That's to show the history behind the biblical prophecies, so we can understand the time frame which the Bible is actually speaking of, instead of trying to make it our future, so we can actually understand what we're supposed to be doing in this kingdom right now. Because a lot of people is waiting on some false promises and all of this and that, and they're up under these camps, and they're up under these churches, and a whole lot of confusion going on, and everybody act like they know what they're supposed to be doing, but for some reason the world is still being wicked. We got to snap out of what we into so we can actually understand what we're supposed to be doing. So hey, I'm like you all. I'm just trying to do my part. So now, amen, Sister Nancy, amen. Or for those that ran out of the village, they stirred up such a were in the country, and exaggerating their own calamities, and telling them that the whole army of the Romans were upon them. They put them into great fear on every side, so they got into great numbers together and fled to Jericho, for they knew no other place that could afford them any hope of escaping, it being a city that had a strong wall and a great multitude of inhabitants. So let's see what happened. They extended themselves a very great way along the banks of the river, and sustained the darts that were thrown at them, as well as the attacks of the horsemen, who beat many of them and pushed them into the current. At which fight, hand to hand, 15,000 of them were slain, while the number of those that were unwillingly forced to leap into the Jordan was prodigious. So, could you imagine 15,000 people dying at one time? Could you picture that? So now, picture this. Josephus recorded that in 3.5 years, which is the 1,260 days in Revelation, if that's what you really want to know. But in the 3.5 years, over 1 million, once again, over 1 million Jews were killed. Could you picture 1 million people dying in 3 years? So picture how many people is in the city. Let's say what, 1,500,000, 1,700,000, and 1,000,000 of you die off. Does that not resemble tribulation? Does that not seem like the end of the world? Would that not seem like a judgment from the Most High? Josephus also stated that 97,000 of Jews went into captivity. This is what Christ was prophesying about, y'all. So, and let's see what else is going on. Guess what else they used in order to declare all the wars? Where one of the priests stood, of course, and gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day. That's when they was doing the Sabbath days. I gotta find one where they was casting the trumpets in order to do the battle, which actually represents the trumpets going off in Revelation. But War of the Jews, Book 4, Chapter 10, Section 4. Look at the 7. So Vespasian's good fortune succeeded to his wishes everywhere, and the public affairs were for the greatest part already in his hands, upon which he considered that he had not arrived at the government without divine providence, but that a righteous kind of fate had brought the empire under his power. For as he called to mind the other signals, which had been a great many everywhere, that foretold he should obtain the government. So did he remember what Josephus had said to him when he ventured to foretell his coming to the empire while Nero was alive. You see, Josephus, prophet, he prophesied to Vespasian that he was going to actually become the emperor and the government was going to come subject to him. So, I mean, what more? Look, this is what you call putting in that work. This is putting in work. You know what I'm saying? This is how we put in work to understand what's going on in history. This one, let's see here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out. But we have a lot of stuff dealing with the engines and stuff. Look, the people were so hungry. Let's look what they was doing. The people were so hungry. Look, while afterward it was not possible to gather herbs by reason the city was all walled about. Some persons were driven to that terrible distress as to search the common sewers and old dunghills of cattle, and to eat the dung which they got there, and what they of old could not endure, so much as to see they now used for food. So the Jews were so hungry they was going into the sewer, eating. Look, Book 6, Chapter 1. Thus does the miseries of Jerusalem grow worse and worse every day, and the seditious were still more irritated by the calamities that were under them, even while the famine preyed upon themselves after it had preyed upon the people. And indeed the multitude of carcasses that lay in the heaps one upon another was a horrible sight, and produced a pestilential stench, which was a hindrance to those that would make sallies out of the city and fight the enemy. But as those that were going to battle array, who was already used to the 10,000 murders that must have tread upon dead bodies as they marched along. Look, so y'all wondering why it said that they were going to be buried, or they was going to be burying people for 7 months. Well, you try to bury 1 million people and see how long that takes. So, I got to get ready to roll, skedaddle. So, what have we went through today? We have proved, without a shadow of a doubt, Revelation was about 70 AD. Matthew 24 was about 70 AD. So, by default, if Revelation is about 70 AD, Matthew 24 is about 70 AD, then you had to have the resurrection to occur. You had to have the great white throne judgment to occur. Hey, how you doing?
All right, how you doing?
Pretty good. So you had to have resurrection to occur. You had to have the great white throne judgment to occur. You had to have the Mosaic covenant to come to an end, which means no more curses. You had to have the new covenant coming in for everybody. You had to have Christ's second coming, and you had to have the new kings and priests being everybody. You had to have all of that come in one time. That's why 70 AD was so important. It wasn't just one event with one war. It was on all levels. Remember, there's two planes. You got your terrestrial and you got your celestial. That's what it is. Oh, my brother. Indeed, my brother. And I'm finna have to get ready to roll right now because I'm running behind, as you can see. But I like to say shalom, shalom. And for anybody that don't know, we have a debate tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. I will be going live. Mr. Bell will be going live. Hope y'all all tune in. Every Monday we have a Bible class on the Zoom app. It's ZOOM, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And y'all see who I congregate with. We got Miss Nancy, Brother Moore, and all of them. So if you have any questions or anything, you can hit any of us up. It's a bunch of us. I know y'all think it's just one or two of us. It's a bunch of us. So I like to say shalom. Thank y'all for listening. Love y'all. Praise. May Christ bless y'all. I'm an advocate of the new covenant. Welcome.